Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the afternoon session of the public forum on AEC. Let me just give you a brief introduction of what we try to do in this session. And before that, I will also explain why we call this session the ASEAN 100. I think the main objective for this session in the afternoon is slightly different from the morning, which focus more on the government policy. And for us this afternoon, I think we want to take more from the practical perspective of the business that would be directly affected by the regional integration. So the main objective for this panel is to assess how increased regional integration poses challenges and opportunities for business in the region. And that brings me to the title that is called ASEAN 100. As you probably have heard that the Asian Nikkei review has now ranked firms from ASEAN as ASEAN 100. And within this, we have firms, the largest firm by size, from countries like Thailand, Indonesia, Singapore, Philippines, and Malaysia. And 25 each, except for the Philippines, I think, which I believe have less number, and Vietnam is also included in this. So from this perspective, we are trying to look from the perspective of firms within the region that are the largest within the region. And the representative on this panel, they are all listed in the ASEAN 100 of the Nikkei list. So that's the explanation why the title is called as such. And I would also like to introduce all the panelists at once so that you can join me in welcoming them all. We are very honored to have the very high executive from various companies within the region. We try to reach out to companies in ASEAN, but I guess the logistic of regional integration has not been so easy, so they were not able to join us. So we have with us mainly Thai firms. I will introduce them by the speaking order, and apparently they sit in that order as well. From my right, Kun Tassapon Bijleveld of AirAsia Thailand. Kun Tassapon has been CEO for Thai AirAsia since day one of its operation in 2003. And he has been seeing the company succeeded in listed in the stock market in the SET in May 2012. And I don't think that he needs any more introduction. Everyone knows him as Mr. AirAsia for Thai AirAsia. And next to Kun Tassapon is Kun Pipit Aneaknithi from KASIKORNBANK. Kun Pipit is Executive Vice President and also the Division Head of World Business Division of the KASIKORNBANK. And his previous experience also includes the China Business Division of KASIKORNBANK as well. So I think that his wide experience in seeing KASIKORNBANK expanding overseas would be very valuable for us to understand how K-Bank position itself in the more integrated region. And now to my left is Kun Surong Bulakul. Kun Surong is Chief Operating Officer of Infrastructure of the PTT Group, which is now Thailand's largest multinationals in terms of its assets overseas. Kun Surong has long been with the PTT Group, 30 years, I believe, with the group. So he has held various positions throughout the group, and at the moment he also sits as board member in various subsidiaries of the PTT Group. So I'm sure that his view of the PTT Group would benefit our view on how Thailand's largest firm will see the region as an integrated region. And on the furthest left is Dr. Sarasin Viraphol of the CP Group. Dr. Sarasin has been with CP since 1996, and he has held various positions in the group, and he has been an instrumental person behind CP's overseas expansion throughout China and throughout the world. And whenever you see CPs being referred to in the public, you will often see Dr. Sarasin as the one who are giving the strategic ideas and explanation behind CP's group. So I think we are also very honored to have a very experienced person with insights from the CP group, which is Thailand's not the largest in assets, but in terms of subsidiaries and footprints, countries that they represent, CP is Thailand's number one in terms of the Thai expansion with number of subsidiaries overseas. So Dr. Sarasin is also with us. And you can see that we have a very high-level executive who have strong insights on the issues that we would address. And for the structure of the panel, I would like to do the following. I would like to start first with an overview question for each of the panelists to address on more generic issues that affect the industry and the firm. And then the second part of the session would be more firm specific, and I would ask questions that are specific to each firm and their strategy and their positioning within the firm. And then the third part, I would welcome questions or comments from the floor, and that's what we would be doing. And we will try to finish, because we start slightly late, but we try to finish by 3:10 or not after 3:15. So you can go on with your plan after that. So that's the overall structure of what we are trying to do in this afternoon. So let me first start by just giving a little bit on why we are focusing on this issue. I think we have heard a lot about the regional integration, in the sense that the Thai government has always try to convince people that this is an opportunity for firms to expand overseas. And we are actually seeing firms expanding overseas from the region. And this is not just happening in Thailand. It is also a trend that we see in emerging markets in general, that their firms are expanding overseas. So Thai firms are part of this wave that is doing all this regional expansion. But when a region is expanded, not only the firms from the region see the opportunities in the region, and firms that are multinationals from outside the region also see the opportunities in ASEAN and Asia. Next panel would address that from the CEO of multinational firms that are operating within this region. So I would like to start the first question by asking all of you to voice your comments on how the intensifying regional integration, it allows other firms to come in as well, and regional firms to expand. But how do you see in your industry the regional firms' competitiveness? Are they up to par with the foreign multinationals that are coming into the region, and how competitive they would be? And would this pose a threat to the regional players as well? Because the region, when it opens up, it also brings in competitors from other regions. And Khun Tassapon, please start.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. In my perspective of what Dr. Pavida has mentioned, I would say no matter in what business you are in, I think the key asset is people. So I think people is a driver of everything. And if you look at the standards of people, either in terms of language, education, culture, I think there's a lot of mix within the ASEAN region. And if you would rank from tiers, I mean, I don't have to mention the countries. For example, I would say Thailand, we are quite weak on English, and in terms of our educational system. So in order to open up where all the country, let's left aside the multinational that are here, within the ASEAN region, country that would come to invest in Thailand, or the rate that we would go out and invest, I think we would be lack of opportunity if we are not up to speed in terms of our education and educational system. That's number one. And number two, I think the infrastructure to attract people coming in to invest in our country would also be one of the hurdles that we have to look into. I mean, 60% in the next 15 years, I think 60% of the world population will be here in Asia plus China. So there'll be an abundance of people are willing to buy goods and services, but a lot of infrastructure would be. I mean, a lot of transaction will be coming on mobile, and if you would compare our mobile network in this country and around the region, I think we are not up to the speed yet. Okay, so don't talk about the internet or the other infrastructure. Just what is coming next in the future. I don't think we can go back and fix what infrastructure that we have not, or we have lost the opportunity, but let's focus on what are going to happen in the next 5, 10 or 15 years and bring that forward so that we can be up to the speed to the other countries. I think infrastructure and education is the key in order to become competitive in the region or not.
So this issues is now, this morning we hear more about physical infrastructure and all that, but now you have highlighted more of the software, the people and the education. How would the banking industry see this? A lot of banks are also operating in Thailand, and regional banks are also very competitive. How do you see the competition between the established multinational banking that are trying to come in?
In the banking industry, because we are the support industry, we are not, the real sector. Our service, limited to just only the facilitation of trade and investment to facilitate fund flow in this region. So I would like, to highlight the competitive landscape in the banking industry in this region. I think, everyone has evidence, the establishment of the multinational banking, right? It's like HSBC, Citibank, right? They've been in the market for several years. But again, I'm not going to say that, Thai bank is much more better, is doing better job than those multinational bank, right? But what I'm saying here is that, given the fact that the regional integration is at the corner, and we still see a lot of opportunities, based on the historical data of the foreign direct investment in Thailand and also the international trade in this region, particularly when it comes to the intra-regional trade, right? It has been growing substantially over the past few years because of the free trade agreement. And particularly, 5 years ago, as long as I can remember, after we signed the China-ASEAN FTA, the China-ASEAN Free Trade Agreement, and from that year, in 2007, and then in 2008, the financial crisis, right? The previous financial crisis, and after that, because of that, and we can maintain, the intra-regional trade within ASEAN members and also China. So this is the opportunities, right, because of the integration, right, of the region or regionalization of trade and investment, right? But going forward, as I totally agree with Khun Tassapon, as he just mentioned about the soft infrastructure, about the quality of workforce, and about the legal infrastructure, it's about the soft infrastructure, internet banking, and this is gonna be, something we would like to see. We would like to say disruptive financial services model across the border. This is an upcoming trend, and that gonna be, a huge benefit, to the competitive market environment, and that will finally, lead to the benefit of the consumer. That is something we should be fully aware of. At the same time, just would like to highlight also here that if all the firms in Thailand and in the region, can embrace change, this is a good timing, so that we can adapt, we can learn, right, and we create another business model, to counter the upcoming competition. Yeah.
So you see the competitiveness of regional banks coming more from the integration of trade and then the facilitator role of this growing trade in the area?
Yes. So I still believe that we still have a lot of opportunities, but we cannot ignore the upcoming threats. And that upcoming threats is not just limited to the conventional banking, but also through the technology and new infrastructure, right? That will lead to another platform of the banking industry.
So we would get more into the new model of banking industry later on with the later questions. But to continue with this question on how the regional integration would open up to competitors from outside as well. Although PTT is Thailand's largest company by market cap and also by investment overseas, when you compare to even regional competitor like Petronas, PTT is still quite small, and we also have a lot of other energy companies. So how do you see the competition between the firms from the region and outside of the region in the energy sector?
It's not that quite small, a little bit smaller. But let me have a picture for ASEAN100 that we had, and let me go over the macro and go into the energy sector. I think the region is very unique. We had a combination of high growth, low GDP country and low growth, high GDP, low growth country. So I think you're creating what they call unequilibrium. So that is the great opportunity when you open up. There will be a free flow of good, free flow of capital, and free flow of labor. Again, that is a positive news. But how to capture it is very interesting because every country still have a unique situation. They have a rule and regulation that you have to break the barrier. It's very exciting when you said free flow of good. But in actual reality, there's a lot of inherent that you're not allowed the business conduct to be done because a lot of internal process, a lot of internal barrier. In terms of energy, it's quite unique for the region. We have ASEAN who have an export of energy and the ASEAN who have import of energy. So in between among the ASEAN itself, there's certainly a regional collaboration. Thailand, Singapore, Philippines is definitely an energy deficit. We import almost 100%, where Indonesia, Malaysia, Brunei is an export country. So there's not so much on the competition side, it's the collaboration that's going to be there. PTT have been out for the region for over 20 years. I was an opportunity to be the first one to be posted in Singapore, and we see the difference in the sense that there's a business opportunity that lie around, especially for Thailand, who sit in the center of the land-based ASEAN. This is a great opportunity to be doing conduct. But again, it's not only the one we're looking outside, but also the one that integrated inside. But we can find that a lot of commodity business like energy, there's so much what they call local advantage. We see that the past 10 years, there's so many international retailer like Q8, like BP, like Petronas, and finally it cannot be compete with the domestic retailer. So there's going to be what they call a local competitive edging in there. But I think we have to prepare for the different. We have to prepare for the growth. The dynamic of ASEAN will be economy of scale. That means we're going to have a larger market base. We have economic of scope. That means we're going to have much more activity that the service and business can be done. And finally, the economic speed. That means the business conduct going to be faster. It's going to be opened up. So I think the key is you have to break the barrier, the non-legal barrier, to be able to make ASEAN the truly place to be in the global.
So from your saying that regional companies, regional energy companies can benefit from economies and scale, economy and scope, but so can multinationals that are coming into the region. Do you think that with stronger technological expertise that companies like Shell or other energy companies, that they have longer experience overseas as well as technological expertise. Do you think that the regional energy players as well as PTT can stand up to that international competition?
I think that is not really a big barrier. I think the key barrier is access to the resources. It's very important that as each country is very protective of the resource now, how to break that what they call the control or protectionism is very important. Like for example, now Thailand and Cambodia we still have a vast resource under the sea, the vast resource of petroleum deposit. But availability to get access to that had to be a political incentive to be there. So I think the key is not individual competition, but as the region itself, the opening up, we had to eliminate what they call the non-tariff barrier, that to be opened up, and the business itself is quite natural competition is being there already. So it's not really a competition. I'm more concerned about the small and medium-sized organization, the small and medium size of Thailand, who are going to be less competitive in the global market when the international business is coming in. We always look very positive that we go outside, but we forgot that everyone coming to Thailand as well.
So, Kun Surong has highlighted one of the aspects. The challenge is that everyone is coming into the region as well, and but these are large firms that are large by regional standards, so it might do better than the smaller competitors. What about the CP Group, Dr. Sarasin? CP is one of the longest established multinational in this area, and with the more regional integration, do you see competitions from outside, from larger agribusiness company, Tyson or other companies? Do you see this as also an area where everyone would come in and then it would challenge CP position in the region?
Thank you. Greetings to all my friends and those who are here this afternoon. I'm very thankful for the opportunity to be speaking up here with a very distinguished panel. My views are essentially maybe somewhat different from, to put it mildly, from some of the views already aired. But I would like to agree on one point with Kun Surong about the pie expanding, and that is the economy of scale that is expanding, and that is, I think, is an opportunity, not only a competition, but opportunity for the players as well. I'm not excluding competitors. I think all, that will be in the business will benefit from an enlargement of opportunities or accesses to market, to capital, from banks to people. And here I'm talking about people, not only Thai people, peoples of ASEAN, and people from elsewhere around the world who are interested in working in this region. So in our business, this is essentially a very, very important point. We welcome competition because competition means access, opportunity. And opportunity here, I'm not taking it lightly because people are very important to us in terms of those who will be our customers, our clients, our stakeholders in general. So it is very important. But I think what makes the difference between us and the competition will be the strategy that we employ in our business. I'm sure that it's the same with AirAsia, the same with K-Bank, the same with Moderator. We all produce, more or less same things with our competitors, offer the same services, but our strategies, of course, are the thing that would set the difference between us. And in order not to waste too much time in the first round, I would just say that it so happened that we are in the manufacturing business. and also in a sector that is very essential or vital to, all people, and that is food. And therefore, in food, we believe that we have established a strategy that is very hard to beat. We go after the domestic market as well as the external market at the same time. We don't just sell, manufacture to export. We manufacture in order to satisfy internal demand. And in this case, in this sense, we're not very concerned, in the negative sense, about competition, because I think that there's a lot of room to grow. But in this area where our business is both internal as external, we can grow at the rate and the pace that we set for ourselves. Of course, we will need, at the end of the day, all the essential things that I mentioned that everyone else in the business will also have to address: capital, people, and market. But I like to believe that in the 90 years of our business, not only in Thailand but also now, across the world, even in the developed countries of Europe and and North America, we have used this strategy of producing for domestic as well as for external markets to, in a very effective way, if I may put it that way. And I think that this is a strategy that we will continue to adhere to. And therefore, we are optimistic that as the pie expands, we will also benefit from that expanding pie as well. Thank you.
So I think the first round of our first set of questions give us some overview that business in general tend to feel quite good about the expanding pie that allows them to benefit from economies of scale, economy of scope. I just have one short question to follow up on the generic one before I get into the specific question for each firm. We have heard so much about how the regional integration would facilitate business doing business across country. In your industry, do you really think that business has taken enough advantage of all these regionalization schemes that are out there? And is this more of a talk from the policy expert, or is it really happening and you actually benefit from it? Please, Kun Tassapon.
Do you want me to tell the truth or you want me to lie? The truth, some truth, but not the whole truth. Okay. I think aviation industry, if you look at it, it's is one of the most protected industry, if you look at it. But on the other hand, I think we've been here for 11 years. On the second year that we have started AirAsia here in Thailand, it started 2 years ahead of us in Malaysia. So Malaysia is coming to 14 years and we are on the 11 years. China is the first country to declare an open sky. At that time, LCC or low-cost carrier that we use, the term, was not really well known in ASEAN. It's very well known in the US. Southwest has been there for like 40 to 60 years, Ryanair, EasyJet. So it's a new thing here and we don't know what it is. Actually, we should have used the word low fare airlines, but we used the word low cost. So it gives a lot of implications to the word. Okay, and when they started to open up open sky in China, they allow every airline to fly in except low cost. What have we done wrong? We have an aircraft, we have a crew, we have a pilot, we have an engineer. What's the difference between LCC and the legacy airlines? So there has been complaints. So then they open up for all airline, all type of airline, except to Beijing, Shanghai, and to Guangzhou. 3 cities cannot, which is fine because for us, any city is good. Okay, the smallest city has like 10 over million people, which is good enough, so we don't complain. So then comes Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, Vietnam. has opened up everywhere except Ho Chi Minh City. Okay, Cambodia has opened up everywhere except Siem Reap. Laos, not to mention it, it's never opened until now. India is still on bilateral. Philippines is still on bilateral. Okay, Malaysia opened up. So basically, everyone around us is now on open sky, except India and the Philippines. Okay, which is still on a bilateral, which is a government to government giving seat. I give you 1,000 seats, you give me 1,000 seats. Okay, that is something that we have done before in the aviation industry, but not for the past 10 years. Open sky, by concept, it means that I can fly to their country free. I mean, you don't have to ask for permission or anything, just fly. Of course, you have to ask for approval and all those stuff, but once you actually file an application to go there, they will say, I'm coming to Guangzhou. Well, we welcome you, but so sorry, I think the slot that are available in the airport is about 2 in the morning. Okay, you want to go to any city, they say, oh, we have a slot for you, but it's 5 in the morning. So yes, it's an open sky, but there are some barriers in there. So right now, before it was actually using this as a barrier because they themselves are not ready to compete. So they have to beef up their competitiveness as well before they actually open up. But what happened now, once they open up, everybody has really opened up for the past 5 years. But up till now, every infrastructure or every airport has been filled up at least 99.99%. Okay, which means if any airline want to have a flight to Singapore, Hong Kong, Guangzhou, Shenzhen, Beijing, Shanghai, and I can go on, you cannot get a slot because it's really full. Or even Suvarnabhumi here, Don Mueang is about 80% full already. When I say full, it means from 6 morning to midnight. Every 3 minutes there are plane taking off, or in some airport every 5 minutes. Either taking off or landing. So it's really full. So the slots that are available is from midnight till 6 in the morning. And right now the airline is using up to 2 o'clock and starting to take off on the first flight at 5. So the gap is actually from 2 to 4 or 2 to 5 in the morning, only 3 hours. So there has been a lot of talk that a lot of cities are building up new airports. Okay, so to answer the question is yes, it's an open kind of things, but actually there are still barriers within there. So if you are actually going into any other business and going to invest there, you have to actually look whether it's really open up or not, or there's something hiding in there. Some might be by intention, or some might be the infrastructure, like the aviation industry. Thank you.
I think the aviation industry and the banking industry have some similarity in the sense that they are the service that follow the customers. When a region is integrated, financial institution and airlines follow that. So how is that view in the banking and the financial industry? Is all the talk on regional integration and financial liberalization actually benefiting regional firms? Kun Pipit.
I think, to support the logical explanation, of the regional integration by looking at the intra-region international trade volume and also the foreign direct investment. I think so far the financial service sector across the region can function so well. This is from my observation. But looking in the future, if we would like, to enhance the competition, and also if you would like to force, the local players, particularly, in different segments of the financial services industry, be it retail banking, corporate banking activities, the international trade, or even microfinance or retail individual customers, I think, there's still a lot of room, for betterment, right? So that all these regulators in the region need to work together. How shall we liberalize further sustainably, right? Sustainably here, what I mean is, to support the growth of the real sector, right? And there are 2 reasons. The first one is, to facilitate the trade and investment in this region. And the second one is also very critical at the moment, particularly in emerging economies, is the financial inclusion, meaning that nano finance, about the retail banking in the rural area or something like that, right? So looking, from the current perspective, I think, the liberalization of the financial service industry in this region is quite healthy so far, right? But I'm not quite sure about, how shall we make it happen? I mean, the full liberalization in the future. This is another challenge that all regulators across the region need to work together, right?
So we hear different perspective that, in banking is quite healthy and aviation is still, some work to be done. And the two gentlemen on my left are more into the manufacturing. And these are industry that we see also the integration of the value chain of industries. And a lot of liberalization take place on that part also, tariff reduction and all the opening up. Has it really benefit the firms, all these schemes, Kun Surong?
Thank you, Dr. Pandita. Let me go back to my slide again. I think we are in a different situation. I think we are quite fortunate in the sense that we are the importing rather than exporting. So the theme for PTT is the energy security for Thailand. So the main objective is to find energy for Thailand. And I think it is a good combination of ASEAN who have the country who have access of energy and the country of deficit. We are in the deficit part, so we are welcome the opening up of the market. You can see that around us, there's certainly unique situation in every country. Look on my right, on my right, Laos. Laos is Switzerland of ASEAN. Laos have been a very clear policy of green and clean. So they are not welcome big, heavy, dirty industry, but they welcome what they call renewable energy. So Laos would be a major import of hydroelectric power to Thailand. So that's going to be the cheapest and the cleanest power available for Thailand. It's going to be satisfying 2,000 megawatt required by the northeast of Thailand. So ASEAN or northeast is really benefit from excess or export of electricity to Thailand. Myanmar, on the other hand, is so much resource rich into hydro, and we're going to do a lot of things that we cannot do in Thailand in terms of creating energy security. We are import about 20% of natural gas from Myanmar, and now it's going to be a lot of new hydro power and coal generation firing plant and import electricity back to Thailand. So that is really adding up to energy security and add the value to the country. When you look in the south of Thailand, you have certainly Malaysia, who have both import and export of energy. So they're quite what they call become a trading nation and become still exporting of the gas and still importing of the oil. And definitely Singapore is a trading post and enjoy the open free market economy. When you look in the South Indonesia, we have a lot of vast resource of coal production, and it's going to be a major supply of coal in the future. Indonesia export about 450 million tons annually of coal, and we're going to be able to enjoy a lower energy cost by using a coal-firing power plant with the supercritical clean energy basis. So it's going to be what they call a balance of energy, and now we are reducing our scope. When the oil price is $100 last year, I'm going to talk it differently, but I think we are shrinking the investment, we are shrinking, and we are going to be refocused in the region, close to home, available at home. We are welcome competition, as Dr. Sarasin said. Competition is healthy as long as you have a level playing field. The key part is how to be a level playing field. Like Kun Tassapon said, yes, a level playing field, but your plane can take off at 2. It's not a level playing field. But I think it's important to make sure that ASEAN have freedom to trade, freedom to communicate, and freedom of free flow. Again, we learned the mistake of the EU when you combine the basket. So I think the currency, we probably not going to have an ASEAN currency. We still probably have to use $1, but let it go. Let the freedom of business operating, let the pie grow, and everyone will be benefit from that. So I think in terms of energy, we are welcome competition. We have what they call a great balance. We're going to creating what they call a trans-ASEAN power grid and trans-ASEAN pipeline. So there's a lot of opportunity, but the barrier because of energy security, the barrier of the politics, the barrier of changing in society is there. So I think we need to promote freedom of trade and freedom of business around.
So we hear the call for more freedom of everything, and then the business can benefit more. Dr. Sarasin, has manufacturing been an area where business actually benefit from this regional liberalization?
Well, I'm with Kun Surong when it comes to supply side economics. I think that our business is contingent on consumption, and growth of the economy. And my concern at the moment is how Thailand, the country where we are at the moment, is handling that issue, or those two issues of consumption and economic growth. This is our major concern, but that is something that is beyond corporate ability to tackle. It has to be the government and of the day, and also those who are involved directly in politics. But speaking from the perspective of the company, we always talk about what my boss refers to as 2 highs and 1 low. And 2 highs means higher pay for people, for the people that we that work for us, and also the partners that we work with, and productivity. Another one is productivity. Higher pay hopefully leads to higher productivity. Okay, but at the end of the day, if you have those 2 highs, it can result in one low, and that is low cost. Low cost. And I believe that we are all in the same boat as far as that is concerned. I think the main issue for us at the moment is really how to, in the macro picture, how to encourage growth and consumption in the region without fear of inflation or fear of, let's say, the possible impact on creating, let's say, income gaps or income traps or whatever. I think that all these things will be addressed in their own rights when the government, when the country, when the people agree that we need to grow in order to survive, not only just to benefit from the growth, but also to survive. And maybe I'm jumping the gun a little bit, but perhaps I can maybe jump in at the moment and talk about, or make a comment about, the discrepancy that we are seeing in Thailand about what our leaders pronounce, that we want to become a smart economy, we want to be a digital economy, and all those high-sounding terms to describe, growth, the next phase. But I'm looking around, I don't see any evidence of that growth happening. Thailand, for instance, used to have, the Eastern Seaboard development, for instance. And that was the focus, one of the major focuses of growth in our Thailand 20, 30 years ago. But today, what is happening to the Eastern Seaboard? Perhaps we ought to think about, I'm diverging now to a different, not away from my own, business, but maybe to talk about Thailand reinventing itself in order to create growth which will attract outside investment, outside competition. That's what I'm concerned about. It's not really about, regular, business that is being conducted. I think we're doing okay. If we are doing 3.8% growth, or even less than that, country will survive. We are fortunate in that sense than many other countries that have to struggle. Look at Singapore. They have nothing. They said They have to struggle very hard in order to survive. But we have everything. We are like what the Chinese would call a frog that is in warm water, really enjoying itself and not really having to worry too much about, problems around the frog. So I'm saying that if anything at all, AEC, and so far I have not seen that yet, coming from official, mouthpieces and organs, AEC as how should I say, the thing that will sort of stimulate people or inspire our leaders to think about the next phase of growth in Thailand. We cannot just continue to rely on existing, how should I say, relying on, interests that we are living on, interests from the past. We have to think about the future. Otherwise, I think Thailand will not benefit at all from AEC. In fact, will suffer from AEC.
Thank you, Dr. Sarasin. So in a way, happiness has been returned, and business are somewhat happy, but in other ways, maybe happiness has not fully been achieved here in Thailand. So we have heard a lot about all the issues that we need to address as a country, but I think now I want to move more into the firm-specific issues of how each firm see the industry being played out. And I think one of the key issue of the enlarged market integration is that firms would have to adjust their overall strategy in terms of regional operation. And for this round of questions, I would like to address specifically for each firm. And for you, Kun Tassapon, low-cost airline is interesting in the sense that you are competing with national carriers and national... Oh, you're not?
They are competing, yeah.
So, but national carriers, national airline would be based on a country base, whereas we are seeing AirAsia being more like a regional airline with headquarters in Malaysia, with leading operation in Thailand and everywhere. How does all this regional expansion play into the strategy of AirAsia? What would be the role of Thai AirAsia as opposed to AirAsia Malaysia, AirAsia in Indonesia, when everyone can try to fly to each other? How is this being done in your model? You can share part of the truth about the business strategy.
Okay, because the ASEAN region is not in one. It's not one community yet. It's not like in Europe, where if you set up a company in the European Union, you have the right to do or expand your business across Europe. Okay, in one currency and one set of law, one set of standards. But before they get there, there's a lot of pain and a lot of stuff as well. And I think we are just in starting that. But at the end of the day, we probably become in one union, like in Europe. Okay, so for AirAsia, because we don't have that at the moment, in order for AirAsia to expand, they have to have a joint venture and set up a company in various countries. So even though it started in Malaysia, but the second country is Thailand, the third country is Indonesia, and then we have Philippines, and then India. And now we have Japan, which is outside of ASEAN. So that is the only way that as a group of AirAsia we can grow. But having said that, when you start up a business in the foreign countries, it's a 51-49 by law, 51 local and 49 foreign nationalities, and you are using the rights of that country to fly. Okay, but the way we look at it, AirAsia, we manage it as one brand. Because people from outside of the region, they wouldn't know either you're Malaysia AirAsia or Thai AirAsia or Indonesia AirAsia. It's one brand. Because you book from one website, you can pay on the same website, you can go on Thai AirAsia and you can come back on Malaysia AirAsia, and you can fly and connect to any of the AirAsia within the region. So it's very convenient to travel within the ASEAN region, and I'm proud to say that I think we have the most connectivity in the ASEAN region and also into China. And we are gaining our expansion in India at the moment. But we're not looking at the first tier city or the capital city. You can see that we have hubs outside of the capital cities, and we fly from the small city to small cities, which would create more passenger traveling, tourism, and also logistic, basically cargo that can move around. So if I give you the example in Thailand, a lot of airlines that are operating, they have their hubs either in Bangkok, either in Don Mueang Airport or in Suvarnabhumi Airport, and they will fly to any province in the country and also to international. But for us, we have a hub in Chiang Mai where we fly directly to Hong Kong, to Macau. We fly from Chiang Mai to Phuket, from Chiang Mai to Hat Yai, from Chiang Mai to Surat Thani, so that they can connect to Samui Island, from Chiang Mai to Krabi. Okay, and from Phuket we are flying to Udon Thani, so that people from Laos can come to Udon Thani and then come to Phuket. We are flying from Phuket to Singapore, to Hong Kong, to Macau, to I can't remember where. And recently, last year, we just opened a new hub in Krabi. So because the Phuket airport is quite congested, so we use Krabi as a secondary airport, which is only 1.5 hours away from each other. And we use that to fly again within Thailand, and also to Hong Kong, and I think we're doing to Guangzhou at the moment. So being a low cost, what we can do is that we can connect all the dots in the region. So I'm not sure whether you could call that as an integration or not, but allowing people to travel more. For example, if you live in Vientiane in Laos and you want to come to Phuket, before you would have to fly to Bangkok, stay there for an hour or 3 hours depending on the flight at the airport, and then connect to Phuket. So you have to pay 2 times the airfare and wasting I don't know how many hours along the way. So basically it would take you about 6 hours at least to get from Vientiane to Phuket. But now you can get on a flight and you fly direct to Phuket, and you pay only 1 leg of airfare. That will save you money, and it will save you a lot of time. Basically it's only 1 hour and 40 minute flight versus a 1 hour and a 1 hour 40 minutes, which is 2 hours and 40 minutes, not counting the transit time. So basically, if you fly from one hub to another hub by bypassing the capital cities, you save at least 3 hours and at least 30 to 40% of what you would have to pay on 2 legs of airfare. And I think that's being an LCC, I think that's the key driver of the community, either in terms of tourism or logistics. Time and money is everything. And I think maybe it's not an integration, but I think we are endorsing, or we are the vehicle for integration of the region by having that, and we continue to expand in that way. So for us, it's not capital city to capital city. Anywhere where there's money, we will go. Anywhere where there's goods and logistics to travel, we will go. Now what we have done is, if you look at Thailand, and in the government plan, there would be road from Myanmar direct across the middle of the country, direct to Vietnam, into Laos, and there would be from China down to Vietnam and down to the northeastern of Thailand, and down to Rayong, where the industrial, or Mataput. So all the airport around there we have opened already. So that's why we have opened 4 airports around this dot. So once you hit the border, you can choose either to travel by car, by rail in the future, high-speed train, or by plane. Okay, so we are doing our part for integrations. It may not work now, but in the future, once everything is coming in order and coming into places, I think we will be the airline that will enjoy the regional integration. Thank you.
Thank you. I think you have highlighted the first model of business that we are seeing emerging in this regional integration. And this is the kind of the facilitating role of business that connects the dot. And then this is a company that grows as a region. So I might say that you are conveying the message of think regional but act local, because you still need to form joint venture domestically and all that. So that's AirAsia story. And let's hear about KASIKORNBANK. You know, now that we know that every bank try to position themselves as an ASEAN bank. Singaporean bank are doing the same, Malaysian bank are doing the same. HSBC is also saying that they are local banks for global market. How does bank differentiate itself one from another, especially in a market where everyone tries to claim that they are ASEAN bank? How does KASIKORNBANK make yourself stand out among the regional and global competitors?
Thank you. Let me recap a little bit about our strategic direction going forward. Just correct your conclusion in the previous session a little bit. What I'm saying is that the competition so far in the financial service sectors in Southeast Asian countries is healthy, but looking into the future, this is something very much challenging, right? That all the regulatory bodies across the region need to work together to ensure that the outlook of the real industry growth is healthy, right? And the loss of challenges that we need to overcome together. Just come back a little bit, to the KASIKORNBANK strategic direction, for the upcoming regional integration or the regionalized strategy. How shall we make ourselves, as unique or differentiating from the others? Looking at our strategic basic information about the trading flows and the investment flows in this region, we not just only look at the ASEAN or AEC itself, but also, we look at someone else, other countries, who have been playing a key drivers, for the growth of economic activities in this region, i.e. China, Japan, and Korea, right? They are the main drivers for the foreign direct investment in this region, or almost in every country in this region. And the second thing is the trade volume, international trade between Japan and Thailand, Japan and Myanmar, or Japan and Malaysia. So as, the commercial banker, we are not the manufacturer, so we do not know much about, how to produce goods, but we are going to facilitate the flows of funds across the region. This is our role. How shall we work together with our business partners, be it association in Malaysia, association in Indonesia, or the banking partners, so that we can work together to facilitate or to raise the bar of the service, in the cross-border financial transaction to support, fund flow across the region. This is our role. So from that information and from that perspective, we develop and we execute our strategy accordingly. And you might notice, about our regional expansion so far. We established, a strong collaboration with the Japanese regional bank. A numbers of them so far. We work together is about 26 or 27, meaning that all those Japanese partner banks send their staff Japanese to work together with our people in Bangkok. So a numbers about 30 of them now working with us in Bangkok. This is to ensure that they can work together with us, to facilitate the trade and investment from Japan and Thailand and between Thailand and Japan, right? At the next step, we are going to expand this kind of business model to other countries as well. We start working already, a couple months ago with Chinese bank. So KASIKORNBANK staff, will have the Chinese nationality working, hand in hand with our Chinese-speaking Thai, right, to serve Chinese and Thai customers who do the business with Chinese, or Chinese, we can also serve Chinese who would like to invest or trade with Myanmar. And not just only the financial services, that we are going to provide to our customer, but important is that, they should obtain the first-hand information about the investment destination in particular country, in the ASEAN country. We partner with 60-something banks in this region, and ask them, to commit with us in enhancing or improving the cross-border financial transaction in this region, so that it can be predictable by our customer, our Thai corporate customer like PTT or even CP, even AirAsia. They understand, the service level agreement with us because they are domestic customers. But when it comes to the cross-border transaction, we need to deal, with banks in the foreign market, right? A totally different regulatory requirement, right? Totally different culture of doing business. So this is something, we have to work together, to even better serve our clients when it comes to the cross-border region. This is a part of our KASIKORNBANK strategy.
Thank you. So you are giving us the picture of ASEAN Plus. So KASIKORNBANK is not just ASEAN, but encourage the flow of ASEAN Plus to region that Thailand has key international trade relationships.
Correct.
Thank you. And moving on to PTT, I think PTT interests many of us in the sense that PTT is also a state-owned enterprise that also acts as a private company. So you have to balance the role between the state-owned enterprise as well as a company in the stock market. And you also have to look at international expansion in the region as well as outside of the region because a lot of resources are outside of the ASEAN. How does PTT balance all this role together, please?
I think that's very interesting and very difficult to answer, but basically we have two roles. The role of national oil company and the role of a public company who have a vast interest to the major shareholder. I think for PTT, I think we have the leverage of being outside of Thailand, being in ASEAN for a very long time, over 20 years. So we know the landscape pretty well. I think we have break ASEAN into two parts, the land-based ASEAN and the island ASEAN. So we had the strategy in every country except Brunei, who's not much opportunity at the moment. But because of the national energy security, I think we always constantly looking for available resources. So when we look at resources, we go where the country who have resources. Okay, so the first one is Malaysia. We have a joint development in the Gulf of Thailand. We have a JDA which is joint developed with Petronas Malaysia and splitting the gas both up to Thailand and go down to northern Malaysia. In Myanmar, it's a very big project. We have the upstream exploration supplying 20% of the gas into Thailand, which over 20 years, and we still expanding into other activity, including building a power plant and major energy complex in Dawai in the future. We also using the leverage of having the most advanced retail business and using that model into this country. So we're going to build the first PTT retail station between Naypyidaw and Rangoon and make sure it's the same standard that we have in Thailand. In Laos, on the other hand, is the country of green, country of mountain, and we're going to respect the culture of Laos, and we're going to be investing in the major hydro power electric dam, Sayaburi, and expect to import energy, electricity, about 1,200 megawatt into Thailand by the year 2020. In Cambodia, it's a level playing field. We've been there for a long time. We have an oil depot terminal. We have retail station. We had aviation. Actually, AirAsia is our big customer around the region on supply. So we are there where the airline is there. So we're going to be a service of energy as well as available resources. Indonesia is a vast and big resource, and we have so many interests in that country. We have coal mining, we have exploration, and we are looking for a utility service provider. We're going to do cross-regional trade also. The oil flow will not flow from Thailand, but going to be from Singapore, Indonesia to Myanmar, to Cambodia, and transit through Laos. We're going to export coal from Indonesia to Philippines. So there's a lot of what they call intra-regional. So we've been there, we know the landscape, and we are happy to have the open up. I have the land-based ASEAN, which is basically a connectivity of the region. We can see that the strength of PTT in the visible to the public is retail. So we're going to plan to build all the major retail stations along the major highway, from Kunming to down to Chiang Rai, or Kunming from Guangxi to Vietnam to northern Udon. We're going to take advantage of regional highway, regionalized area where the domestic good can be flow around, and we're going to be a service base. It's very successful not only in the energy part, but we use the retail as the driving force. Now we are selling coffee. Amazon Coffee is, we are selling 60 million cup a year. I tell you, much better than doing oil business, you know, that's much more profitable. But in Laos, we use Dow coffee, use local coffee. So I think the key success is three things. First of all, we have to adapt. That means we have to adapt to the environment we're going to be in. And that is the most difficult, the Thai, because the Thai always like to stay at home, like to eat rice and grapao, you know, something like that. We don't want to change. So adaptation is very important. We have to respect the culture. We have to blend in. We have to be what they are. Secondly, we have to be competitive. The model that is the most important, that you have to bring the best technology, the best availability to the country. You cannot use second-grade competition anymore. No country allows what they call a second-to-none technology anymore. And finally, you have to be collaborate. Collaboration, that means you need a partner. As Kun Tassapon said, we cannot go alone. You know, we need a local, a strong partner, the partner who understands the market, the partner who understands that we share the same value, the same culture, and we have to stick to good corporate governance. So I think that is basically the principle of doing business in the region.
Thank you very much, Kun Surong. You have highlighted the value chain of the energy industry, that you play more of a national oil company on the upstream, whereas the downstream you are trying to be the private player, trying to get market opportunities. Dr. Sarasin, CP is known in the region and as elsewhere as a company that is most successful in everywhere, but particularly in China. So CP's overseas operation is also most diversified in China as opposed to other areas where it's concentrated mainly in food. So with the regional expansion of ASEAN, how does CP see ASEAN as a region as opposed to China? Was CP regional strategy as opposed to the overall global strategy? Please.
But before answering your question, I'd like to let's say, endorse what Kun Surong said about partnership. We are good partners with PTT in the 7-Eleven service station. We hope to keep that partnership for a long time. Now, that's pretty serious, I think, a business between us. But to answer your question, I would say that yes, definitely China is one of the major economies that we have to look up to, if I may use the expression look up to, you know, and they're looking down at us too, you know, but we're looking up to them. But besides China, where we have been for more than 30 years, India is also a very important, economy that we need to remind ourselves as we look at the, future expansion of ASEAN. Just like PTT, we are in practically every country in ASEAN, except maybe Brunei in manufacturing. And we hope one day, if we could do it in Singapore, why not in Brunei eventually? So our business is actually has no bounds in the sense that we manufacture, in an integrated fashion, but in the value chain, in the integration value chain, we can actually pick and choose which parts of the value chain we want to emphasize. So today, CP is in practically every part of the value chain, from upstream to downstream, and from producing animal feed for livestock business, now to manufacturing food for people in general. And with that, we also, become involved in businesses like logistics, retail, and other businesses that, including coffee, including competition, maybe with, not only True now, we have another brand called Community Coffee, which is, if 7-Eleven will have it, maybe within the next, I'd like to make a pitch here. also. Within the next 2 years, we will have 10,000 outlets for this low cost coffee, outlet. But it will not be in competition. I think the pie is big enough so that we can all enjoy coffee at varying prices. But so we think that China, India, Southeast Asia, they are becoming increasingly connected as economies. And so we are not only talking about 600 million people, but we are talking about 3 billion people who are potential customers or actual already customers, clients, stakeholders, and whatnot. And I think from our experience, our business is fortunate in the sense that we receive cooperation or at least the willing support of governments, not only Chinese government, but Indian government and the governments of ASEAN, because they agree with us that what we are doing is actually something that will enable, every part of the society to benefit. Now, it may sound a little bit, corny to say that, but in actual fact, our business is about, enabling all sectors of the society to rise together. Otherwise, our business is not sustainable. So, in that sense, we are very confident, we are very optimistic about future growth of ASEAN. But having said that, it depends also on the enlightenment of governments, to see, to see the way forward in order to allow the region to, the Southeast ASEAN to grow into the next step, where we will become more and more integrated with the global economy, and how to benefit, from that growth, and how to position ourselves in order to do that. And here we have to talk about individual governments, individual countries. And unfortunately, as I mentioned already in the second round, Thailand is behind in, having a strategy that will actually benefit from this very promising growth in the region.
Thank you, Dr. Sarasin. I think we have covered a lot of ground, and in respect of time, we have about 5 to 6 minutes left, and I would like to welcome questions or comments from the floor. Maybe we can welcome 2 to 3 questions if they are linked together. Please identify yourself and please be brief with your questions. Any questions? No? Please, Christopher. Is there a microphone? Yes.
Thank you very much. I wanted to very quickly just pick up on what Dr. Sarasin has been talking about, as far as I understand, which is maybe not the friction, but the relationship between regional liberalization and domestic markets, governments. And I would be interested to hear how far you think that liberalization in itself can accomplish these things that you, may I say, are slightly critical of that governments are not doing. How far can liberalization help with that? Can they do the job? Can it do the job of governments, to put it, oversimplify a little bit? Thank you.
I think part of it, yes, definitely. Liberalization is part of the problem I've been trying to point out here. I think that it is a very essential part in order to bring in investment, needed investment, needed strategies for growth, economic development. And here we are talking about, on the one hand, the authorities are talking about the new economy, they call it digital or whatever you want to call it. But that means the authorities are already endorsing the idea of liberalization. Because the open economy, a new economy, in the new economy, that is a very essential part of that strategy. But at the same time, we keep hearing from the panelists, about restrictions and, lack of policies that will actually make that kind of, economic plan or dream a reality. So definitely, I think liberalization, we need liberalization. We need to have transparency. But more than that, we need inspiration. We need to have a story that we can tell our friends, not, among ASEAN and as well as elsewhere, that we have a story that we can actually, work together to make it happen. If you look, I'm a historian by training. 200 years ago, Ayutthaya was the center of the Ayutthaya, the kingdom of Ayutthaya, was the center of international economy in the region. Why? Because we behaved like Singapore. It was an open, port. Everyone came and benefited from that. And today we are saying, hey, Singapore is, something alien to us. We are not like Singapore. But if you look back into our own history, 300 years ago, we were behaving exactly like Singapore.
Yes, question here and there. Okay, please, first. Lady first, sorry.
Thank you, Veronique Salzlozak from the Asia Foundation. Could you give us one specific non-tariff measure that you think is really impeding your capacity in your specific sector, to grow regionally? And if there is one, what would be your strategy to engage maybe with the governments that are concerned with this non-tariff measure, or do you engage also with ASEAN? What actually are your areas of engagement, in a way, to advocate for the removal of these measures?
Okay, so question on non-tariff barrier for each sector. For the gentleman there, is your questions related to this? Please identify yourself as well. I will take two questions, and that would be the two questions for the panelists, and after that we will conclude. Yes, please, your question.
Oh, okay, I am Dr. Altaf from Thammasat University. My question is basically it's more forward-looking. The issue of integrated ASEAN in the cooperation between South Asia and Southeast Asia, considering the Asian highway and the connectivity. How do your business strategy actually addressing those aspects? Of course, India is a bigger market, but then you have Bangladesh to link with as the immediate corridor connected with ASEAN.
All right, two questions, and I would like our panelists to be brief. One on specific non-tariff barrier for each sector, and how you see the connection between Southeast Asia and South Asia. Please, Kun Tassapon, please.
I don't know.
Many non-tariff.
Non-tariff. I'm not too sure how to apply the word non-tariff to the aviation industry. But I think on the panel here, I heard some a level field eco. So once we become a one market, I think the standards or the measure for any of the government bodies, for example, the ICAO audit on us now is something that is not the same level. We have been seen that we are not the same level as Malaysia or Singapore or the European country or even Korea and Japan. That's why we downgraded, and that would affect the aviation industry. So Singapore has their own commonalities and standards. Malaysia has one. Indonesia has their own as well. We are following something, I don't know what. So I think we have to agree on what standards in each and every sector of the industry that we are going to look forward to and adapt ourselves and improve ourselves in order to catch, or we can use the highest standard of any nation within the region. Okay, in any whatever, let's say banking, maybe Thailand is the best, energy, maybe Singapore is whatever, aviation, maybe Cambodia, who knows. because right now we are below Cambodia by the ICAO audit. So we pick up a country and then we just improve ourselves to be on the same level field, and that's probably where we can go. So there will be no barriers, there will be no substandard, it will be on the same level. So which now I think in many of the industry have not been taken up or has not been looking to set up the standard of where we are going. Everyone is saying that AEC and is coming at December of this year, but we don't know what the target of each and every industry in details are. Okay, only on the macro level. I think banking is one of the things. Stock exchange is one of the things. I'm not sure about energy. Aviation, absolutely nowhere. We don't know where we're heading. Okay, thank you. And the other question is South Asia. What's the question again? Sorry.
How do you see South Asia? But I think you have already addressed it in your strategy that India is a big market for you. So if I may move to Kun Pipit, do you see any specific challenge in terms of the regulations or something for your particular sector?
Yes, in the financial service sectors, there are 2 parts of this different, according to the stage of development. The first one is liberalization. Right? We do not need to wait until the perfect liberalization in effect, but we can start do integration. I mean, in terms of financial service sector across the border. If you like to ask a spec question, if KASIKORNBANK in Thailand, particularly Thai banks, big fours would like to expand, in other countries in this region, right? This strategy has been obvious, but again, in the host country, right? Because due to the different stage of development of each economy, so the technical barrier remain quite obvious, right? For example, I just would like to give you an example. For example, in Indonesia, right? We are not allowed freely, to enter this market. And even in Malaysia, it's much more developed in terms of the financial service sector. They allow just only a certain amount of the foreign equity in the financial institution, right? So, but again, having said that, it doesn't necessarily mean that, we cannot facilitate the cross-border trade and investment. We have many different models so that, we can work together to serve the real sector to grow cross-border.
Thank you, and sorry that I have to be brief in respect for time for the next session. So just quick comment from both of you. If you see any particular regulation that or non-tariff barrier that restrict the growth of your business?
I think it's 2 parts. The first part is our internal process. I think the rule and regulation, the government, the bureaucracy, the policy is very clear, but execution is very poor. So the key is how we going to execute the policy as efficient as possible, how we can standardize ASEAN as the single standard. So I think the key is we are among the different ASEAN within the same region. So we need to help and speed it up. We need a financial regulation, we need banking sector to bone up so the free flow of capital can be there. We need to allocate labor to make sure that the country that deficit labor like Thailand can enjoy a legalized and fair labor treatment in there. So I think the key part is the speed up of standardization of business and practice in the region.
Dr. Sarasin, please.
Also speaking as a former bureaucrat who used to attend, numerous ASEAN meetings, I think the problem, here lies with the discrepancy between what they discuss in the ASEAN meetings, that is among the functionaries, the bureaucrats of the 10 countries, and what is happening on the ground. And so I think that my answer would be for the officials who attend 400 meetings a year, on regulations and on what these issues, should actually whittle the number down to 200 maybe, and spend the time that is saved to look at the reality on the ground. And I think that would really help them see, let's say the reality that integration is moving, has gone so far ahead of them. But they're still talking in Jakarta, in Bangkok and in Yangon about the things that happened 5 years ago, maybe. But today, things are moving very fast. We need to whittle down the hours spent in the meeting rooms for the ASEAN officials. That's my answer.
Thank you very much. I think that make a perfect conclusion that we now hear from the view of the business sector on how they see regional integration. And I think it's clear that each business has their own business model that see the growth and potential in the integrated region. But the dilemma is how to have the government not restrict all those potentials. So with that, let me conclude, and please join me in thanking the panelists on sharing their view, their truth, some truth, not the whole truth, but a lot of truth. Thank you very much.